Hello and welcome to 3 Key Shifts for Consistent Grant Success with me, Dr. Krista Kurlinkis. Thank you so much for being here today. I promise to make every minute of this webinar worth your time. For those of you who don't know me, my purpose, both in life and in my business, is to help visionaries and change makers like you do more good in the world. Most of my clients and students are women who are putting everything they have into their burgeoning nonprofits. And I love helping them do that. Here are some basics about me. I earned my PhD in English, Rhetoric, Composition, and Literacy Studies in 2015 from Ohio State University. And then I went to work as a development director at a nonprofit in Oklahoma. And then I became a grant writing consultant. And I'm trained in teaching English, specifically rhetoric and composition, in universities. And I have taught that for 6 years throughout my graduate education, as well as adjunct faculty here in Oklahoma. Everything from first-year composition to technical writing to digital media studies and literary studies. And I have now been teaching grant writing online through my own course since 2016. Now, let's get into today's masterclass topic. We're talking about shifts in the grant-making world and how you can respond to them to be more successful. So I want to ask you, and I would love if you would respond in the chat box, what is one recent shift that you have found difficult to navigate in the grant-making world? So something that has changed in the last year to 3 years that has really made grant writing difficult. If you're new to grants and you don't know, that's fine. You can just say what is difficult for you right now in terms of finding grant opportunities and applying for them. I would love to hear some of your responses. I just want to let you know that this is the perfect place to be right now if you want to keep pace with the changes to the grant-making world and start winning more grants and for larger amounts. It's also the perfect place for you to be if you want to be able to fund your programs and pay yourself and your staff a living wage plus. I want to see everyone making more than a living wage in the nonprofit world. It's also the perfect place for you if you want to increase your impact, serving more people and doing it better than ever before. And finally, this masterclass is the perfect place to be if you want to take the stress and guesswork out of grant searches and grant writing and applications so that you know exactly what to do and you can get it done quickly and efficiently. This is truly one of the biggest hurdles that I see for grant writers today, is just being unsure about different aspects of this process and not knowing where to turn or not having a place to turn to get help. So here are the 3 key shifts that I have noticed as a grant writing consultant. Shift number 1 is who is giving and to whom. Shift number 2 is growing program design demands from grant makers. And shift number 3, more growing demands about nonprofit accountability for how the grant programs are run, the outcomes accomplished, and how the money was spent. Now, I don't pretend to have all of the answers for you, but what I want you to think about is the way I think about these shifts in the grant-making world. When changes happen, it's an opportunity for us. Certainly, change makes me uncomfortable too. There are timeless things that no matter how the grant-making world changes are going to remain true, but change is something you can always count on. So why not have a commitment to embracing change in order to thrive and grow in your nonprofit work or your academic research or your artistic work? So let's go ahead and get started with shift number 1, who's giving. And it's not just who's giving, but how much they're giving and to whom, because all of those things are tied together. And I'm going to explain why. From year to year, these numbers obviously are going to change. However, the field has noted that this is a pretty significant decrease for individual donations. So this isn't grants, this is donations. In 2018, individual donations went down by 3.48% when adjusted for inflation. And that data comes from Giving USA. The good news is that giving by foundations and corporations is up. In 2018, it went up by 4.7% over the previous year. And again, that's adjusted for inflation. The data on this comes from Candid, which is / formerly was the Foundation Center. And they note that this was huge. So here's a quote from Rachel Hutchison, chair of the Giving Institute. She said, "Giving by foundations represented 18% of all charitable dollars given in 2018, an unprecedented dollar amount, and an unprecedented share of total giving. The strong growth in giving by foundations and in giving by corporations helped bolster total giving overall in 2018. Giving by corporations increased by an estimated 5.4% in 2018, totaling $20.05 billion. Despite this increase in giving by foundations and corporations, of course, there is always more competition for this funding. There are more nonprofits now than ever competing for funding. In the U.S., there are 1,571,056 nonprofits registered with the IRS. This is according to the National Center for Charitable Statistics. Of course, these 1.5 million nonprofits really vary in terms of their size and their revenue. And according to the National Center for Charitable Statistics, 600,000 of these nonprofits have total annual revenues below 1 million. So they are smaller nonprofits. However, 90% of revenue across all nonprofit sectors came from 2.39% of nonprofits with the highest revenue. So the biggest nonprofits with the biggest revenue are getting 90% of that revenue. It's not being spread equally across by any means whatsoever. So why is that important? Well, it's important because as a nonprofit leader, you don't need to be chasing the money that is only going to be going to that top 2.39%. Small to medium nonprofits need to be more strategic and have a lot of knowledge about who is giving to whom. So 82% of nonprofits won funding from private foundations. Private foundations are also the largest source of total funding, 39%, and the source of the largest awards, 37%. Private foundations are also more frequent funders than government. So yes, it's wonderful to get a $1 million grant from a government funder, but it's unlikely. It is much, much, much more likely that you are going to get funding from private foundations, and the amounts are going to be smaller. So now let's talk about who is giving how much and to whom. And again, everything on this is coming from the NCCS. First of all, for all respondents for their survey, the median largest individual award of any type from any type of funder was $69,100. From community foundations only, that median largest award was $10,800. When you take government funding out of that top median largest individual award of $69,100, then the median largest individual award becomes $35,000. So definitely those government funds are really bumping up, like doubling that median largest award. So keep that in mind. So the median largest award from the federal government was $425,000. So you can see how that government funding really skews the median largest award. And I want you all to be thinking about that 10,000 to 35,000 range as the perfect range for a small to medium-sized nonprofit. But let's get even more down into those numbers. For small organizations, so any organization with an annual budget under $100,000, the median largest award was $7,350. For extra large organizations with budgets over $25 million, that median largest individual award was $1 million. Now, what does this mean for your small to medium-sized nonprofit? First of all, the overall increase in giving is not helping small nonprofits as much as you might think by those original numbers. So you need to go after more small and local grants than ever before. There's also more competition because there are more nonprofits, there are fewer individual donations, and a lot of people are going to be going after these big grants, trying to make up for that loss in revenue. Now, here's what's encouraging. There is a positive correlation between the number of grants a nonprofit applies for and their chances of winning at least one. It's reported in the 2019 GrantStation State of Grant Seeking report that in 2018, 94% of nonprofits that submitted 3 to 5 grant applications per year won at least one of those applications. Now, because I watch this from year to year, I know this is up from last year. The same goes for the next statistic. Only 2% of nonprofits that submitted 6 or more applications per year didn't win any of them. So the odds are in your favor. The more grants you apply for, the better chance you have of getting one. Now that might seem obvious, but I get so many people telling me that they think it's just a complete waste of time. They're never going to win one. I don't believe that's true. However, there are factors that will significantly increase your award numbers. So let's talk about that. You have to apply for grants very strategically in order to succeed while also conserving your time and resources. I know how busy you are, and I know that grant seeking is time consuming. So I want to provide you with the tools to improve your process, your final product, and your outcomes. First, strategically apply for more grants this year. Now, how do you do that? Well, I'm going to tell you what I see time and time again with clients and students, things that you should and should not do. First off, don't rely on people sharing opportunities with you when the opportunity opens or is about to close. If you're reacting rather than planning far in advance, you're going to struggle with securing more grant funding. An application that you get in 5 minutes before midnight when it's due is not going to be as strong as one that you have been planning to apply for and have been working on for weeks. Now, how do you become more strategic? Create a comprehensive grant prospect spreadsheet of local, state, regional, and national or international, if that fits you, grant opportunities. You can see an example spreadsheet here. This is a template that we use in my courses to help students keep track of opportunities, when things are due, whether they've been accepted or not, who to contact, what type of support, and there's even a column for evaluating how likely you think you are to win this grant based on research. And this is wonderful, but if you don't put aside the time in your calendar to do the search and evaluation of grant opportunities, you're not going to do it. So spend one day every 3 months searching for new grant opportunities, so that's once a quarter, to add to your grant prospect spreadsheet. Because new things come up, grant makers' priorities change, and you will find new opportunities. I guarantee you'll find at least one every 3 months. In addition to searching for these opportunities on a grants database, you can set up alerts on your grants database like GrantStation and on grants.gov so that you get email digest telling you, hey, there's a new opportunity for educational nonprofits in Maryland, for example. You set the parameters of that search. And I want you to set the goal of applying for 25% more grants this year than you did last year. But with a caveat, you're not just, applying scattershot. You are only applying for ones that are a great fit for what you do. Now, here's where to find grants. The first place I'm always going to recommend is grantstation.com. That is a grants database that is very affordable and comprehensive. Next, we have the Foundation Center. Now that name is being changed to Candid. That is a bit pricier than grantstation.com, but you can find it for free at some public libraries if you just Google it. Next up is grants.gov. Of course, this is going to be for federal grants, which I'm kind of discouraging people from going after right now unless you're already at this higher level and are ready to go there. Then there is Grant Watch, another subscription database. And then there's Google. If worse comes to worse, all you have to do is say grant plus your geographic location plus your field, type that in Google, and I know you will come up with a bunch of hits. It's not the best and not the most strategic way to go about it, but if you're just getting started, you can start there. Okay, so let's go back to this idea. Applying for grants that are on your level. If you have a budget of under $100,000 a year, or probably even $500,000 a year, don't go after mega grants or federal grants. So if you have a small budget and if you're new to applying for grants. So when you're just getting started, stick to small grants, $50K max. If you're applying for a grant that is 2, 3, 10 times your annual budget, I can almost guarantee you're not going to get it. Why? Because they want to know that you can handle that kind of money, and you have to show them that by having evidence that you have handled that kind of money in the past. Once you have some success, work your way up to larger grants. So maybe you start with a $2,000 grant from your local community foundation, and then you work your way up to a $10,000 grant. That is great. And like I said, apply locally before expanding to national foundations, which are going to be more rigorous applications and are going to be more competitive. Also apply with corporate foundations that have business locations in your community or your service area. You're much more likely to get those. Now, before you start working on any grant application, I want you to confirm your eligibility. So double check that you meet all of the requirements in terms of where you're located, where you serve, the type of nonprofit you have, what the funds would be used for, and any additional requirements such as the grant maker requiring that you have a completed financial audit. If you're unsure about any of these, email or call the grant maker to confirm if that's allowed. Some grant makers say don't call or email, but if they allow it, confirm and say, hey, I don't have a financial audit. We're a very small organization. Would a financial statement do? Sometimes they say yes, sometimes they say no, but don't waste time applying for something you don't qualify for. And then, now this is the research that I get really detailed in my course. You look at who has received grants from that grant maker in the past 3 years and see if you are on that same level in terms of budget, history, reputation, and outcomes. That will give you a better sense of whether you can compete with the other people applying for that grant. Now I want to share this post from Trina Boyd. She's in our Grant Writing Made Easy course that I'll tell you more about at the end. And she got a meeting with the vice president of grants at Wells Fargo in Charlotte because it was local to her. And she just emailed them a letter that we teach you how to write inside Grant Writing Made Easy. And off of that letter, she got a meeting and got approved for a sponsorship for an upcoming event. So it's about knowing where to apply to. So Wells Fargo, most people have heard of it. It's this huge corporation, but because it was local to her and she knew how to contact them and what to say, she was able to get her foot in the door and start getting funding from them. Okay, moving on to shift number 2, which is increased program design demands. Grant makers are more demanding about outcomes and capacity. They want to see both the evidence of outcomes and capacity at the end of the grant period, But of course, in the grant application itself, they also want to see that you are capable of producing those outcomes and you have the capacity to do so. I'm seeing this with clients, students, and in broader conversations in the field. This simply means they want results and they want to see that your organization has the ability to get those results before you even begin. One way to strengthen your program designs and demonstrate that in your grant applications is to start outlining your programs with a logic model before you ever get to the grant writing stage. So this includes goals and objectives. Then you'll show how those goals and objectives will be reached through activities, how those activities will be supported with resources, how you will monitor the effectiveness of the program, and we'll talk more about that in Shift 3 as well. And the same goes for evaluation and sustainability. How are you going to keep this program going after the grant funding period is over? Grant makers now more than ever want to see that these are going to be long-lasting changes and initiatives and not just something that you'll do for the 1 year that you have funding from them. And finally, you need to be aware of and be able to communicate to grant makers that you understand the external factors that could impact your work, so things that are outside of your control, and that you have plans for addressing those factors. So here is what one logic model looks like. There are all different iterations of this that you could go with, but it includes the problem statement up top, the project objective, the needs, inputs, activities, outputs, outcomes, and impact. And then it's assumed that you'll have multiple project objectives. Then down at the bottom, you can see that we have assumptions and external factors. And these go across all of the different parts of the objectives. So each one of these columns, needs, inputs, activities, outputs, should flow into one another. So even if you don't have to submit a logic model, having this for each of your programs is going to make your explanation of those programs in the grant narrative so much stronger. The next way to improve your program design is to document your budget strategically. What do I mean by that? Well, of course, you're going to write out each line item on your budget in detail. So rather than just saying staff or personnel, you list each staff member and the exact expenses that come with having them, from their salary to workers' compensation to unemployment insurance, everything. Then you're going to create an extra column that lists which activity that line item will support. So if you have a new program director, what program is that going to be for? If you have a new custodian and you have 5 different programs, then that custodian's work will be spread across those 5 different programs. Then create another column that lists which goal or objective or monitoring and evaluation activity that line item will support. And it could be several, and it could be split up by percentages. So you always can explain exactly where each dollar is going. Next, a lot of times we have a strong statement of needs section that includes a lot of research explaining that problem. However, you need to research not just the problem, but also the proposed solution. So you can show examples or near examples of how the solution you're proposing has worked for the same or similar problems. How do you do this? Follow trade publications in your field. Use academic journals, which you can get access to through your local public library and Google Scholar. Read annual reports from other nonprofits or programs doing similar work. And talk to other practitioners in your field who have implemented similar programs for their personal insight. Another way to improve your evidence of competency is to keep an ongoing competency and achievements list of your staff members. So that means up-to-date resumes and bios, because grant makers will ask for both. This also means an ongoing list of major achievements over the entire history of your organization, and in that, always include metrics when possible. Then include a more detailed list of achievements from the past 3 years, and depending upon the opportunity, select which are most relevant and showcase those in that application. And finally, it's hard to have a strong program design if you don't have a strong organizational structure and strategic planning process. So do an internal evaluation and strategic planning process to figure out what your major weaknesses are as an organization and how you can address them, and then actually implement your plan to address them. This is something that you can talk about in your grant application. And again, it lends to grant makers' confidence in your program design and your organizational strength. Here is a client testimonial from Amanda LaFleur, co-founder and former executive director of the International Association for Premenstrual Disorders. And she talks about working with us on grant applications. Well, one of the things that we really worked with IAPMD on was improving their program designs in terms of goals and objectives and how those relate to activities, resources needed, and outcomes. And they have seen so much more success since doing that. And now it's just become part of their strategic planning process and their program design process and the monitoring and evaluation that they do for all of their programs. So she said this was a real turning point for their organization. And it's something that I definitely can say would be for any organization to put these standards and processes into place. Now let's talk about shift number 3, accountability. What do I mean by accountability? Well, I mean grant makers are now more demanding than ever about your accountability to them once you have received grant funding. This is something that I have noticed in working with my clients, and I believe it's from increased competition and a greater need on their part to report outcomes of their grant-making efforts. So what does this look like for you, the nonprofit leader? This means that you need to have stronger planning, implementation, and reporting for your monitoring and evaluation efforts. It means that you need to be highly accountable for your budget and how you use the funds that they gave you. It means that you need to provide strong grant reports if that is required, and you may need to submit both an interim and final grant report. It also means you need to do more on social media, promoting the grant maker by showing what their funding did for your nonprofit. So let's dig in a bit more into the monitoring and evaluation portion. You need to be documenting these activities and outcomes, and of course you need to show a plan for how you're going to document things. And that's not something you do just at the end of the grant period. You need to plan it beforehand, demonstrate that you have strong plans in the actual grant application, and then start implementing that monitoring as soon as you get the grant funding. To do this, you need to prepare yourself and your staff to collect data at various stages throughout the life of the grant, and then work on interpreting that data at set points, whether that's quarterly or every 6 months. It depends on the length of that grant. Here is an example of a monitoring and evaluation plan done in a spreadsheet. This is for a State Department grant, so that's a federal grant, which means it is very complex. But I want to show you the extreme end of what monitoring and evaluation looks like. This is for a program that encourages the effective implementation of gender-based violence and human trafficking laws, rules, and regulations in order to promote women as equal participants in democratic processes in Lesotho and South Africa. So what you can see is that for each activity, that we have an overall goal for the project, then we have it broken down by project objective. And so the first objective is increase the number of systematized victim-centered human trafficking and GBV investigations and prosecutions. Then we have activities under each project. So it's starting to look like a logic model, but you'll see that it's a little bit different once you go further along. Then you say, okay, indicator, what's the measurement that we're using to judge this? So the measurement for activity 1.1, provide female victims of trafficking and GBV legal representation in criminal cases. We're measuring that by the number of female victims represented by legal support in criminal and civil cases. Then as you go along, you'll see timing, frequency, or schedule. This is really important that you plan out when you're collecting this data. So for this, they're collecting and inputting data at the start of each court case. They're analyzing it quarterly and reporting it annually. Then you go on to say, okay, whose responsibility is it to do the collection, analysis, and reporting? We have different staff members for each of those. We note the data limitations that are possible. Then we have the baseline. This is very important. So we list what was accomplished in previous years, and then in the next column, we say, we've done this in previous years. Here is the increased number that we expect to do with this grant funding. And then this goes on and has multiple activities under each project objective and more than one project objective. And you likely won't be required to do this much detail in every single grant, but for each of your individual programs, you should have an internal document that looks similar to this. Most of this information you and your team need to know and coordinate with your calendar to make sure you're actually doing the monitoring and evaluation to have successful programs. Next is grant reporting, and in a grant report, the first thing you need to know is honesty is paramount. Always be truthful with grant makers about what you did or didn't do with the funding. Always get the report in on time. I know that sounds basic, but it's important because you're trying to establish a relationship with that grant maker that hopefully will allow you to continue to receive funding in the future. More than just reporting the data from your monitoring and evaluation activities, actually do some more in-depth analysis and figure out what that data reveals for your nonprofit. In a grant report, if you're able to, if you're giving them a PDF or a Word doc, include images and certainly include quotes and stories from participants when possible. If your grant maker is local and they don't require a site visit, go ahead and invite them for one, just to increase their personal connection to and understanding of your nonprofit's work. And in that grant report, consider including a lessons learned / what we would do differently section. There is nothing wrong with showing that there is room for improvement. You should always be able to do that. In fact, grant makers expect that. And if the format of this document is up to you, make it really well designed. You can even use something simple and free like Canva. You can just Google that and do a nice document design either throughout, or you can even just do it for the title page. Here's an example of one that I did on Canva. The one on the left-hand side is the cover page for this, and then on the inside, I did the rest of that on Word. Doing this just helps make it look a lot more professional. Now let's talk about money. Again, honesty is paramount. And this is going to be in your grant report, but I wanted to make it separate from that because to many grant makers, you have to actually report how each dollar was spent. This means close documentation from day one is necessary. You need to get training for your staff on how to use QuickBooks or other accounting software to track your expenses by grant. If you for some reason need to make a major change to a program budget for a grant, you need to ask the grant maker beforehand about making those changes. So if you say you're going to use the funds to purchase a van for transporting your participants, instead we need to put this money towards rent on our building, you can't just make that change if you're using a grant maker's funds without asking. Now let's talk social media. Social media is one way that you show the impact of your work and the grant maker's dollars to the public. So you do need to keep track of your social media followings, engagement, and posting info, like what kind of posts you do, maybe even give some examples inside the grant. So you're telling them what kind of exposure they're going to get by supporting you. And you can even propose types of content you will include that feature the grant maker. And of course, if you say you're going to do it in the application, you need to make sure you do it and report on it in the grant report. Now I wanted to share this quote from one of our clients, Jennifer Crow, founder and executive director of Beautiful Dream Society. She has an international organization that we helped get their first ever international grant and have continued to work with to get more international grants. And I'm just sharing this quote with her because part of her grant process, more than any of my other clients, involves a lot of monitoring, evaluation, and grant reporting. So one of the reasons their nonprofit has been so successful is that they're not just writing extremely strong grants, they are writing strong grant reports. Now, I want to talk with you a little bit about why you're hanging out with me here today. You are probably tired of trying to figure out every grant writing trick or tactic that hits your inbox. I know how exhausting it is to try and figure out how to implement these tactics and then how to fit all of the pieces of the puzzle together yourself. You probably are also here because you want to do more of what you love, which is probably serving your community, conducting research if you're an academic, creating innovative solutions to problems, and you probably want to do a whole lot less of what kills your vibe, which is desperately trying to get funding for your incredible work. And you probably know that creating a grant writing system and being a competent and confident grant writer is the key to sustaining your work while finally creating a bigger impact, more revenue, and more freedom in your work. So here are your next steps to doing just that. I truly believe it is time for you and other nonprofit leaders of small to medium nonprofits to finally get the funding you deserve by becoming a next level grant writer. You need a system that takes all the guesswork out of grant writing and secures your nonprofit with a successful, repeatable, and scalable flood of revenue. Remember, nothing I've shared with you in this class today is theory. I've used every single one of these strategies to win millions of dollars in grants for my clients. So then the obvious question becomes, how do I make all of this work so I can get things up and running quickly? Well, I think there are two options. First, there is complicated and confusing, taking years to figure out what really works for grant writing and for your nonprofit specifically, and trying to master writing skills without any guidance. And then there is simple and strategic, which will get you results much faster. You need a complete A to Z blueprint for creating a high converting grant writing system that floods your grant list with perfect opportunities for you, builds massive trust and value between you and grant makers, and puts your grant writing process on autopilot as much as possible. And that is exactly what I've created for you inside my comprehensive, self-paced online course, Grant Writing Made Easy. To quickly give you an idea of what is inside this course, I'm going to take you through it module by module. The first module is Grant Search, Fit, and Planning. In this module, you will learn what type of organization you are and which grants you qualify for, grant makers' expectations for grantees, who offers grants and exactly how to find them, how to decide which grants are the best fit for you, meaning you are most likely to win, how to track and organize grant requirements, tasks, and due dates, which resources and materials you need to gather before you start, how to read and interpret grant opportunity announcements, how to establish and maintain relationships with grant makers, how to set yourself, your organization, or your work up for a successful and streamlined grant writing process, and even how to increase your writing productivity dramatically. When you finish this module, you will have at the least a grant opportunity list on a spreadsheet template that I've created for you, and a plan for completing your upcoming grant proposals. In Module 2, Organizational or Individual History, you'll learn how to speak to your grant maker's priorities, how to tell a compelling story about your work, whether you're applying as a nonprofit organization or as an individual like an academic researcher or an individual artist, how to decide what information is relevant and important to include, how to refine your mission statement, how to interview others to include an outside perspective on your organization's significance, how to revise for style, how to answer questions about your board, and more. By the time you finish this module, you will have a completed history section. Then in Module 3, Statement of Need, you'll learn how to explain exactly who you're serving and why they need your services. You'll learn how to do secondary and primary research. You'll learn how to evaluate potential sources and decide what is most relevant to your argument. You'll learn how to incorporate research that clearly demonstrates need, how to make a convincing argument using rhetorical principles, and how to tell a compelling story with evidence and research. By the time you finish this module, you will have a completed Statement of Need section. In Module 4, Program Design, you will learn everything you need to know to start designing and then communicating your program. You'll learn how to plan strong goals and objectives, design credible strategies, determine which resources you need, create a descriptive and memorable program or project name, differentiate yourself from your competition, how to find collaborators and talk about them in your proposal, how to design program promotion strategies, pilot and launch your program, how to plan and talk about program sustainability, how to evaluate your program using metrics, and how to explain how you will promote the grant maker once you get the grant. When you finish this module, you will have a completed program design. Then in Module 5, Logic, Model, and Budget, you will learn the components of that mysterious logic model and how to complete one correctly, how to adhere to budget requirements and format, the components of a budget and what they actually mean, how to estimate expenses and revenue, what to include in the organizational budget versus the program budget, and finally, what to include in budget justifications. When you finish this module, you will have a completed program and/or organizational budget and logic model. Then in Module 6, all the little details, you'll learn about all the other pieces of the grant that are not the main components or the main sections of the grant, like an executive summary or abstract, a timeline. You'll learn how to write LOIs, how to create an appendix, how to write thank you letters, how to conduct site visits with grant makers, and even how to do grant reporting. I have designed each of these modules and the rest of the course to be the absolute fastest way to get big results with your grant proposals. So here's what you'll create inside the course: a comprehensive grant opportunity list full of grant makers who would love to fund your work, a complete grant proposal that will wow funders, an easy system that you can repeat again and again for writing new grant proposals that will save you hundreds of hours of work. And finally, you can even create a stronger program or project design that will help you get much bigger grants. I'm talking 6 figures plus. And here is what you will get inside the course: the complete grant writing system planner to take you step by step through this process. All trainings available immediately, so you don't have to wait for things to be released week by week. You'll get over 10 training videos, and these are not short videos, these are long videos. over 250 pages of workbooks, checklists, and templates, real grant examples including successful state, federal, and international grants, as well as foundation grants, and quarterly content updates in which we give you new instructional materials to help you improve your work. The total value of Grant Writing Made Easy is $6,547. But wait, I'm not going to charge you that, but I do want to go over why this course is so valuable. The full Grant Writing Made Easy course, everything that I just went over with you, is a $3,300 value. In addition to that, I have 5 bonuses for you that I'm offering during this webinar. The first is 30 days of writing exercises. These go beyond teaching you how to write grants and actually help you improve the quality of your writing. That is a $97 value. Bonus number 2 is instant access to the members-only Grant Writing Made Easy Facebook group. That is a $500 value. Bonus number 3 is a coupon for GrantStation that will allow you to get 1 year of access for $99. Normally, 1 year of access is $699. And GrantStation is the online grants database that I mentioned earlier and that I use for all of my client work. Bonus number 4, you get, in addition to all of the content online, you get 11 live writing workshops each year. That's a $1,650 value per year. And finally, this is new. Bonus number 5, you get quarterly content updates to the course. That's a $400 value per year. And this is content like strategic planning and grant readiness. It can be workbooks, it can be videos, it can be live sessions, it can be combinations of all of that, templates. Basically, what this content does is help you improve not only your grant writing further, but your nonprofit work. With all of that in mind, I'm asking you, are you ready to write successful grants again and again? If you are, I'm inviting you to join me inside Grant Writing Made Easy. And I am opening this course up to you today during this webinar only for the price of $97 and then $10 per month for continued access. Now that access, you can stop at any time by emailing us and just saying, hey, I don't need the course next month. We can cancel your access or suspend it and you can pick it back up later. But keep in mind, in that first month, you've only paid $97 and you can go ahead and download all of the materials inside the course. And that is yours to keep. To join today at this price, you can go to the link shown on your screen, bit.ly/join GWME now. So that's bit.ly/join GWME now. You can also click on that Join Now button that's popping up for you. And once this deal is over, once your webinar discount is over, this price goes up to $297 and then $20 a month. Once you click on that link, you're going to go to the final step. I try to make this as easy as possible for you, which is the checkout page. Now, once you complete this order form and it goes through, you will be sent 2 emails, one of which will give you all the login information to the course. Within 15 minutes, you should have both of these emails, allowing you to immediately access everything that I just told you about for the course. Now, let's talk cancellation policy. I mentioned this earlier. If you no longer need access at any point, you can cancel your next monthly payment and all monthly payments to follow by emailing our support team at support@writegoodco.com. If you want to pick your membership back up later, we can do that. You just pick up the monthly fee again. And that monthly fee gets you just continued access to everything in the course, continued access to the monthly workshops, continued access to the quarterly content updates, and to the Facebook group. So again, just going back over this course is a total value of $6,547. I've got the breakdown here for you again, showing how that splits up over the course and the 5 bonuses. So if you're ready to join us today, head on over to bit.ly/join GWME now, or just click that offer button that says join now. Now I would like to share some student testimonials from Grant Writing Made Easy, because before you sign up today, I want you to be 100% sure that this course will get you the results you're looking for. So here is our first student, Ginger Anya Dela, founding artistic director at the New City Stage Company, and she emailed this to me after she had just started Module 1. She had not even gone through the entire course yet. She was just in Module 1, and she said, "I actually have a certificate in fundraising from NYU, but this course is already providing more value than what I got from them for $3,000 a class." Next, we have Trina Boyd, founder of Women in Power, Inc., and she is so great about sharing her wins in our closed Grant Writing Made Easy Facebook group. And so this first image is of her with a check that she received, a grant from Walmart. And these are just 2 of her posts. She's had a lot of posts on here. But I just love showing this happy image of her with a check as an example of what this course can help you do. Then the next post was about a month later, and she said that she was just approved for a huge grant. She said she's scared to say the amount, but this is our 3rd grant approval since being in this program. And she says here, advice, just follow the steps and proofread. Just to think I wasn't even going to apply for this grant. Someone on this group posted the announcement. Yes, so we post grant opportunities that we hear about that we think might be good for some of our members. I kind of try to keep a running list in my head of different types of organizations and different types of work you all are doing. And when I see something that I think would be good for you all, I post it in the group. So she saw that post, applied, and won. This is from Amy Grimes, an independent grant writing consultant who is in Grant Writing Made Easy. And she said that as a grant writing consultant, so working with different nonprofit clients, she wanted additional support since the only previous experience she had was in grad school. And so she wanted to learn a more streamlined approach to writing grants as well as improve her writing. She said she loves the course's narrative approach to writing and the monthly workshops. She said her favorite thing is that she doesn't feel alone anymore in her work. And I think that's what a lot of students have expressed to me, is that now they have a community that they can turn to and get help from. She said, if someone who wants to learn grants asked me if they should take Grant Writing Made Easy, I would say, do it. As mentioned, I had a graduate course on grant writing, but it cannot compare to having the ongoing support that GWME gives. Being able to ask questions and get feedback while in the midst of any part of the grant writing process is what makes it so worth it in my experience. I was feeling a little lost and overwhelmed with organizing my grant writing, and this course was exactly what I was needing for support. This is Dr. Melissa Baralt, Associate Professor at Florida International University. She is in Applied Linguistics, and she joined my course when I first released it back in 2016 and has been an active member ever since. And she has now, at this point, for her research and development of a phone application to reduce the word gap called Háblame Bebé, she has won $660,000 in research grants after having never won a grant before taking the course. So here's what she said. While I attend all of my academic institutions' workshops on grant writing, as well as the online trainings from federal organizations, it is hard to synthesize all of these sources' information to one's own personal proposal. I highly recommend Grant Writing Made Easy. Besides getting access to funding sources, it forces you to practice the art of grant writing. She goes on to say, I learn best with specific examples, and this is what Grant Writing Made Easy does. I am grateful for what I've learned and for the personalized feedback and interaction. As an academic, this source has by far been the best means by which I've learned to become a better grant writer. And one of the things that Missy did early on especially was she came to every single workshop that we offered. And she just continued to grow and thrive. And I'm now just blown away by all she's done with grants. Here is another student, Heather Morrigue. She is actually in Canada, in Alberta. And she has shared several times about winning grants for her church. As soon as she took our webinar, before she even joined our class, she applied the principles from our webinar and won a grant. Then she went on to win a second grant after doing more work in the course, which she talks about here. And you can see she's included the award letter here, and then she asks a question from the group, and then the group answers it. So that's the kind of support that we like to give. And then on the right-hand side, on March 3rd, you can also see that she had her biggest one ever, $70,000 for a charity, and she says, thank you so much for this course. So Heather went on from writing grants just for her church to writing grants as a grant writing consultant for different nonprofits. So that is another thing a lot of people in our course have ended up doing. Okay, and then here is our last one. This is from Carolyn Tague, founder of the Lamongo Project. And she says, every lesson is filled with valuable information. So far, I would say an important takeaway is learning to be specific in my responses. She also says she values the live sessions. I've attended 2, and you have given me very helpful feedback. I also like the way in which you've structured the course. This course walks you through the steps of grant writing and provides tons of support along the way. So if this is resonating with you right now, I invite you to join me and these students you just heard from, as well as hundreds of others, inside Grant Writing Made Easy. You can use the link down at the bottom of your screen, or you can click on that offer button that's popping up for you right now. So during this webinar only, you can get access to this course for $97 today, then $10 a month to follow, and then you can cancel that monthly access and payment at any time if you wish. Once this webinar is over, the price will increase. Our normal price for the course is $297 and then $20 a month to follow. So again, I would love to have you in this course. If you are someone who wants to learn to write grants for the first time or wants to improve your grant writing success rate and get bigger awards than ever. I know how difficult it is right now for small to medium nonprofits. I'm tired of seeing the same giant nonprofits, multi-million-dollar nonprofits, getting all the grant funding, sucking up all the air out of the room. I want to help smaller nonprofits with fewer resources to win more grants, because I truly believe you are most in touch with the community and you are most connected to the community. You take into account what they say they need and what they truly need, and that is what I want to see thrive. That is what I want to see supported by these huge funders. So if that is what you want, I invite you again to join me and all of these other wonderful students inside Grant Writing Made Easy, because the work you do is so important and it does deserve to be funded. If you need help ordering or have any questions, please email us at support@writegoodco.com and we will be more than happy to help you. I have a quick question for you, or questions. If all this course did was finally get you just one successful grant application that brought in $10,000, would it be worth it? If all this course did was lower your grant writing costs to a few $100s, rather than paying up to $150 an hour to hire a contractor or $50,000 a year to hire a full-time grant writer, would it be worth it? If all this course did was help you get in front of more grant makers who are invested in your mission and pique their interest in your work, would it be worth it? Now I'm going to start the countdown on this offer. So once this countdown is done, this webinar discount of one payment of $97 instead of one payment of $297 is going to close. I'm also going to take this time to answer your questions. This is your time to ask me questions. Please do take advantage of it. I'm here with you and I would love to help you. So let's go ahead and get started. And I want to get the first question we have here, which is a very common one. And the question is, how long will it take to get through your program? Well, Grant Writing Made Easy is totally self-paced. As soon as you purchase the course, you can access all of the course content. I find that if students dedicate just a few hours each weekday, it usually takes about 1 week to work through each module and complete the section of the grant that corresponds to that module. However, the course is designed with working people in mind, so it allows you to decide for yourself what you need to work on. So for example, in the Statement of Need module, I teach research and research writing as I would in a university writing course, which means it's pretty in-depth. But if you already feel confident in your research, you may skim over that section and focus on the clarifying your argument section through writing exercises. So it really depends on you and how fast you want to go through it. Okay, so here is another question. It's, how do I know if I'm right for your program? This is another great question because I don't want anyone to take this course if they are not going to benefit from it. My goal for you in Grant Writing Made Easy is always to increase your grant award rate and the dollar amount of the grants you're winning. So here's how I can tell if that is you. 1, you have never written a grant proposal and need to learn how to find a grant opportunity, conduct research for it, write it, revise it, and edit it. This course will teach you everything you need to know to get from start to finish. This course might also be a good fit for you if you have dabbled in grant writing but haven't had a ton of success. So you know the basics and might even have a few grant opportunities that you want to apply for, but you need help developing your writing skills, understanding some of the intricacies of more complex grant applications, and just need someone to guide you through getting to that next level. Now, I want to shout out some of the folks who have already purchased. So we have Tammy, Victoria, James, Brenda, and Diana. Welcome, and I can't wait to see you inside Grant Writing Made Easy. So those are folks who have already purchased at this point, and I'm going to keep reading names off as we go. Okay, great. Here's another question. Will I be able to ask you questions? So ask me questions if I get stuck in the course. Yes, you definitely will. We have an active Facebook group where you can ask me questions about the course, post general questions about grant writing to the group, even request feedback on your writing from your other classmates. So remember those peer review sheets that I was talking about? That's how you find people to exchange them with. So my students tell me this is one of the most valuable assets of the course. They know that I will always answer the question, whether on Facebook or email. If you have a technical issue with the course itself, that's something we can also easily take care of over email. Now, the live online writing workshops allow you to see other members' writing get drafted and revised in real time on the screen, and you can have your own writing drafted and revised as a group. So it's a learning process. It's not like a consultant working on it and doing everything for you, but we'll focus on specific parts and help you work on them. You also get to talk to me and your classmates and even see them on camera. And this is where a lot of the awesome work of the course happens. However, you will not get behind if you miss any of the workshops. None of them will be focused on just one particular section of the grant. It's basically whatever people come in with, we do the writing together. So you can miss many months if you want to. You can always catch the replay of it. Just like in a webinar, you'll be able to catch the replay as soon as it's over. So don't feel stressed about making every one of those monthly workshops, and you'll have access to it in the years to come. So don't worry at all. Okay, here's another great question. Do you have to buy GrantStation access to succeed in the class? No, you definitely do not. Although I have a lot of members who do buy the access and it's tremendously helpful, I also have students who either have a different database they pay for already, or they go to a library to access Foundation Center's database for free. One of our members, Nicole, who raised a lot of startup funding for her new nonprofit through small grants, actually went that route and went to the Foundation Center's database at her local library, and that was very fruitful for her. Also, we have a lot of academic and business grant writers who would not benefit from GrantStation as much as nonprofit workers, so they typically come in with some grant in mind, or they use grants.gov and free academic databases that I list in the course to find grant opportunities. So that was a great question. Okay, so I'd like to share some other folks who have just joined us. We have Gary, Daphne, Tamika, and Sarah. Welcome to the course. We are so excited to have you join us. So it's really an honor to be in the company of all of these wonderful, smart, nonprofit leaders, academic researchers, and artists. And I would love for you to be in their company. So I'm going to close out by welcoming a few more people who have just joined us in the course. Welcome, Casey and Janine. We're so excited to have you. And if I didn't mention you by name, that's because I was trying to get through all of the questions. But thank you so much for joining us if you did. I so look forward to seeing some of you inside Grant Writing Made Easy. We are going to have a lot of fun together. Now, for everyone else, I wish you the best of luck with your grant writing.